Hello, hello, hello. I'm so excited to talk to you today about words. Words have energy, my friends. Yes, they do. And I want to tell you all about it with my guest. So I'm Jane Hogan, the wellness engineer. This show is it's called Wellness by Design, and it's about designing your life, designing your wellness by being intentional about how you're living. And one thing I love about my guest today, Yvonne Silver, she is where did I write this down? I wrote it down up here. I wrote it down over here. She's a success catalyst. Now, who wouldn't want to know a success catalyst? I'm sure happy that I do. So this is Yvonne Silver. She's going to talk about the power of words and the energy behind words. If you are watching and you have any questions, you can put them in the comments anytime and we can answer them along the way. So Yvonne, welcome to Wellness by Design. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you for the invitation, Jane. And I love the work that you're doing. Such important work in today with such a stressful world that we're living in. It's so important, your work.
Yes. So the title for the show is Why Your Words Matter, especially during COVID, right? So people are very stressed right now. And stress, I think from everything that I've learned, stress is probably the worst thing for our health. It creates illness in our body. So it's important to keep the stress down. And one way we can do that is with our words. We're going to talk about that. So
Yep.
tell me, how did you become I also want to mention too that you're the author of this book that I have on my iPad, Words. Whoops, there we go. Words, Women and Wisdom, the modern art of confident conversation. Now, how beautiful is that? I've started reading your book and it is quite amazing. So I've learned a little bit about how you've gotten into this work, but just share with our audience a little bit about how you've come to where you are now.
Yeah. Well, this work came about as a dedication to my mom, who was my first what I call unmentor, because she showed me everything that I shouldn't be doing or things that would shape how I became today. So she was a professional businesswoman. She stayed home when she had the kids, and she had met my dad when he came back from serving in World War II. He got hit by a bullet in Dunkirk, and he ended up coming back with PTSD. So he was a very angry and upset man. They just didn't treat those hundreds of thousands of men. And what transpired from a father standpoint is he was never really a dad. He always criticized, nothing was ever good enough. And at age 11, he yelled at me after I flunked an exam, an important exam, that I would never, ever be successful in life. I'm just going into high school.
Yeah. Talk
I
about imprinting, hey?
Yeah. And that was just like the final one of ones that sank in. And at first I was obviously, really hurt. I'm like thinking, and angry, right? How could someone who's supposed to love me and support me say that? And then it became a rebel negative energy that transpired because I decided that I was going to darn well prove him wrong. And I carried that energy of proving and putting up this shield that was going to keep me safe behind it. Nobody was ever going to hurt me again with their words in that way. And I carried that for about 45 years until having a
Heavyweight.
having a breakdown, not a breakdown, but well, kind of like a work breakdown, right?
Yeah.
And decided that, I had to sort of take 3 months off, step back, really evaluate, what was I doing? And I decided I was working with the wrong people. I was working with senior male leaders who were not respecting my opinion as a woman. And it fired me up to decide, you know what? I'm going to take my mum's experience and my experience and put this into 40 different words and word concepts that women can bring forward and change how they talk to themselves and how they connect with others.
Mm. So beautiful, beautiful. I love, I actually, I haven't finished your book yet, but just starting to read it and talking about, I don't think I've ever really read anything like this before.
Hmm.
Talking about the words and especially relating to women and especially relating to women in this time.
Yeah.
Um, because we're in a different time now, I think, with women and where we were. And you talked about the different stages of women's liberation, I guess we call it that. I mean, we are very liberated now, but it's different. It's different, and we have our ways of communicating that are different, and we need to embrace it. And I think that's what your book is about, really, is embracing it and how to embrace it and how to still be powerful while honoring this side of us, which is kind, caring, nurturing, all those things.
Yeah.
I'm trying
Well,
to
we can.
summarize your book for you, but
Yeah. Well, we can't be kind to ourselves. Oh, sorry, we can't be kind to others unless we're kind to ourselves
yeah,
first. So
yeah.
if we come into the conversation from a place of grounded energy and we are respecting ourselves and what we're asking for, it's so much easier to put our value forward.
Mm,
And that value is critical to be noticed at work, in corporate arena, for promotions, for entrepreneurs who want to really speak up and share what it is that they're up to and share it with passion, so people feel the passion before they hear what it is that you're actually doing. They just feel that energy. And when I taught at the Fearless Women's Conference in 2018, that was a favorite conference of mine because that was where I launched my book. And there was some slides that I put up talking about the work of Dr. Mazu, oh, I can't even say it. I need more coffee. Mazu Emoto. And the work that he had done, where he had taken taken water, frozen them both in nature and in cities, and looked at the difference between the crystals.
I've
And
heard
the crystals that were frozen in cities had this sort of gunky brown, horrible, ugly look to them. And the ones in nature were much more beautiful. And then he took it further and started putting words, saying words as the crystals were freezing. And what came back was this, when it was a word of love and an energy that was different, it was a beautiful crystal. Whereas if it was words like "I hate you," it was really an ugly, yucky brown mess.
mm-hmm.
And that was advertised on the train stations, the underground train stations on the walls in London. I first saw it there. And I was just so drawn to that. It was just amazing to see what difference energy makes. And our bodies, of course, are made up of what, 80% energy, 80% water?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is important. And I don't think, well, I don't think people in general realize that the power in that words are energy. I mean, we understand that we have a reaction towards, but I don't think people realize that it's energy. But it's this energy which changes. We are energy. It's
Yes.
energy in words, and of course, thoughts in our head are often words that changes the energy in our body and can create illness. I seen this. I know this is what one of the things that contributed to mine. These words I was saying in my head, and words
Mm-hmm.
that I'd heard, from other people, like you say, caretakers and so on, and then I see it time and time again with clients of mine as well, that they're running over like a negative pattern of thinking in their head, which is their words, right? That's one way we think, is in words. And so words really do have a lot of power. So
Yeah.
let's talk about how words have both positive and negative energy, and how what are some examples that you've seen of this?
Mm-hmm. Well, just take a simple example. Women should on ourselves a lot. I
Yeah,
should do this,
should
I
all
should
over
do that,
ourselves.
right? So if we think about that one word, should has that obligation, that tone of
Mhm.
I'm doing something for somebody else. I don't really want to do it, but I really are, I'm obliged to do it. Whereas if you shift that to a subtle change with could, it has this lightness and this energy of possibility, and anything could be possible. And
Yeah,
it's so different. Just one subtle shift. That's one.
amazing.
If women take the word "but" out of the middle of the sentence and replace it with "and," it keeps the conversation going. The energy of reciprocity of that flow of conversation, instead of cutting the sentence in half, it actually flows all the way through. I love your dress and blah, 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 whatever the word is or the sentence is. It has that energy of continuity. Again, that energy of invitation. When I first connect with a potential first client, I don't go in and say, "Tell me about your biggest challenge," or "What keeps you up at night," because I find that their shoulders drop and their energy drains out and they get into this negative space of thinking about that thing that's on their mind. Whereas using David Cooper Ryder's appreciative inquiry approach and coining a couple of the sentences as appreciative sales kinetics, what I ask is, "Tell me about what's working really well in your business and how could it be even better.
Mm.
And it just starts this conversation where it's a pleasure to have the conversation because they're proud of what they're doing. They're excited to tell you about what they want to do next. And then I say, well, can I tell you a little bit more about what I do as a success catalyst, working with women, helping them to flourish in business and master their authentic leadership style and their language, and how I could, so I can see we might be able to dovetail and go faster if we worked together. And I never have anybody with an objection because there's nothing to object to. We're creating, actually co-creating a better future together.
Yes,
It's
yes, yes.
beautiful energy.
And that's the name of your business too, right? Flourish.
Well, my program is called Flourish. My previous branding, after I came back from burnout, I decided I wanted this renewed energy. I took Reiki training as well as that supports my certified executive coach training. And I took Reiki and came back with the word flourish because it rhymed with nourish, and it just felt like this whole different title to my previous organization, which was actually called the Shattered Ceiling. Now, that's a great name for women who are wanting to strive and break through. I didn't feel like I wanted to be in that energy anymore. I felt like I had broken through, and I'd realized that, you know what, there's more to life than just work and just having massive, big contracts, because that's what burned me out. What I want to do is my passion work, my heartfelt work, the work I'm here to do. So I rebranded. Flourish was the name that came up. And then in the last couple of years, just after my book hit bestseller overnight, I launched under Women and Wisdom Media to acknowledge the book success, and then also to link in with the work I'm doing with virtual summits, with my podcast, with my radio show, and all of the other media related things, writing articles, etc.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love it. One of the things that you talked about in your book was having a word of the year, which is
Yes.
really funny because I just came up with my word for the year a few days ago, which and I talk about this in my women's group, Wonderful Fine, as well. What's going to represent your year? How do you, what are you going to sign up for or volunteer for this
Yeah.
this year? So my word was, and I noticed it was in your book, is expansion.
Lovely.
Love it. So when you think about expansion, why did you pick that as a word in your book?
Well, expansion is one of those, again, it's a positive word. It's a possibility word. And that's the place that I work, is when I first connect with a client, sometimes it's because they know they have a vision, but they can't quite articulate it. It's almost like having someone dump a box of jigsaw puzzle pieces out in front of you, and then you're supposed to put it together. So they have all the pieces, they've got the credentials, they've got the experience, they've got the skills, but they can't quite figure out how to put it together so that they can monetize their services. So that's one of my gifts. And expansion to me is about taking what you've already learned and going beyond. It's doing something better. And for me, it feels like it's an energy of contribution and compassion as well, which is where I love to play. That's probably why we connected so fast.
Yes, yeah. I think that's how I feel too, and I feel it feels like airy and light to me as well, which is something that I wanted to create more of in my life. So, anyone that's watching, whether you're watching live or on the replay, if you've got a word, feel free to type it in into the comments. Let us know what word you're thinking about you'd want to be your word of the year. And the beautiful thing about this, and I know, Yvonne, you mentioned this in your book, is that it gives you like a guidance to, like, does this match my word? Does this feel like, for me now, does this feel expansive or does it feel contractive? And it's kind of like helps me with decision making and what should I do, what should I not do? Because we all take on things that aren't necessarily things we should be taking on. Or, well, not to judge that word. I'm looking at that word should again, but that aren't taking us in the direction we want to go.
Yeah. I love what you just did and said there, because we talked about the word should. So now it's on your radar and now you're catching yourself noticing it. So first thing is awareness, right? That's the first point of change with any of my coaching clients. And now that you know about it, when it comes up, you'll notice, you'll observe, you'll change it, you'll catch yourself. And with that repetition, you'll eventually stop even using it because it'll start to play in your head before the word even comes out. And
Yeah.
you'll come out with an alternate word. And could is another great word. The elements that you talked about with the word for the year. Last year, my word for the year was alignment, which was where, again, stepping into bringing all these things that I do to support women to flourish in business, have that authentic voice, is to come all together under one brand, which is Women in Wisdom Media. And that was centralized. And that does give me focus. Much of what I do is sharing important messages, inspiring messages, informative messages, messages that matter. And how I do it are the different modalities, such as the book, the podcast, the radio show, the summit, etc. And then I've got really excited this year about some technology that I came across, which is all around having more effective communication. So back to this power of words. So I added on an additional certification. So I'm now a certified iOS Bank 6 Intelligences coach as well, which gives me the opportunity to work with business owners and entrepreneurs who want to have more intelligence about how they communicate with other people, more smart intelligence, because they understand that there's 4 different personality types. And this is not psychology. This is a process that is what we call lovingly biology, because it's taking some of those traditional profiles. If you've seen a disc profile, you could say that this system, I'll put this in the camera, this is disc with 4 different personality profiles. The system I'm talking about is called BANK, which is an acronym I'll share in a second. But BANK is basically, it's like DISC, it's 4 personality styles, but it's completely different. It's different because it's the science of what makes people buy, how to influence them. And it's about presenting, instead of having, if you're in sales, having one sales pitch that's supposed to reach all people, it's having 4 different ways to present information so that the B stands for blueprint personality, the A stands for action personality, the N is for nurturer, and then the K is for knowledge. And all of those 4 different types of people like to receive information in different ways. So if we just give them one blanket sales talk, it's not going to resonate. And I found this fascinating, and I got so excited about it that I got certified in it this summer and have been using it, because really it can elevate your business by your sales by over 300% when you understand how to present to those 3 other types of people other than yourself, your own primary, what we call personality code. Fascinating work. So I'm bringing that in together too.
Everybody loves doing a personality test, and this one is really quick. I'm just putting the link to yours up there now, but I want to say you're obviously using this in a business sense and sales in terms of business, but we are always selling, right? We're selling ourselves, and I don't mean in terms of like, we're being bought out, but anytime we're in communication with anyone, whether it's friends, whether it's a loved one, whether it's our children, parents, siblings, whatever, we're kind of in a sales conversation always. Like we're like, you want to be with me, I want you to talk to me. So you need to have a way of communicating that works with that person. So it's not just like in business, it's really in life too, understanding who you are and the people that you're communicating with, so that you can communicate in a way that's effective for all parties, right?
Yeah. And I just wrote about this today in my VIP Women in Wisdom update communique, that I believe that this year is actually the year that we might have more compassionate conversations. And I think that compassionate conversations, bringing together a kinder world after all of the civil unrest and upsets that's been happening recently, is about listening. It's about caring and having that compassion so that we do truly understand the perspective of the other person. And then we can step into having some sort of relationship, because then we're on more common ground. Yeah. So what I was talking about earlier on with those 4 types, I mean, I'm a primary nurturer then action. And you are as well, because we did your test too. Fascinating. And so for me, I have to be helping people. It's all about personal growth. It's about caring, community, making sure that everyone's looked after. Recycling is important to us. I hug you if I was there in person, whereas the blueprint personality is very much more traditional and solid and credentials and processes and structure, and you wouldn't hug them. You would be in your business suit and you would be shaking hands or giving a business card, very formal.
Right.
The knowledge is likely to not even want to shake hands or acknowledge you're there. I mean, it's sort of, think of Spock, right? That's the kind of greeting, because they're all about the data and the logic and the science and the technology and the big picture. And then the action is the high five, go getter, feel like they're on Red Bull, they're driving the fast car. You've got to present information to them quickly, succinctly, with the excitement, with the sizzle. They need to know what they're getting out of it, and they're on to the next thing.
Right.
So it's very different in how we communicate. And once we have that understanding, the conversations become magical, because they just flow so much more easily, because I'm understanding what you need out of the conversation. And it's not about selling, it's about serving.
Yes.
If I want to have a long-term relationship together, then I need to present you with information in a fashion that resonates with you, that you can absorb, so you can make a smart choice. And maybe that choice isn't to do something together, but at least we've had a great collaborative conversation.
Right. What I really love about this system, the bank system, is it's just four. Oop, put my hands in the screen. It's just four types, which are pretty easy to kind of like, figure out what the general personality and what the general communication style is like for each person. So, I mean, as you were talking then, and you were talking about the knowledge type, I thought about my father. He's not alive anymore, but I was thinking, definitely that's where he was. So you can almost like have a pretty good guess of where the person is, even if they haven't done the test. When you know what you're like and how you communicate, and you know how that person communicates, you can make little adjustments, right, on your style, and do it in a way that is going to be, comfortable for both sides. I know there's some people, I'm a hugger too. And I know some people, like I go to hug them, and then you can tell they don't want to hug. Now I'll be thinking, what's their bank code?
Yeah. Well, I realized as I was going through there was one particular client that used to just rub me the wrong way, and I couldn't figure out what it was about it. And then I figured out that because she was so extreme action, she was basically off doing her own thing, and she was like leaving people trailing in the dust. So it was almost like she climbed over them to get to the top of the pile. And as a nurturer, that really rubbed me the wrong way. So for nurturers, it's very much about integrity and doing right by people and being fair and taking people's feelings into consideration. So when I didn't feel valued in that relationship, it was time for us to part ways. and that's okay. I recognize it now, but I couldn't figure out at the time, because I respect that she's a hard worker and she's getting stuff done, but it's how it was being done that rubbed me the wrong way. So very important. And it's not just, as you say, about business, because obviously any communication, whether it's with our children, whether it's with our family, whether it's with our next door neighbor, whether it's with the next big deal, chairman of the board of the next big deal that you might strike, you never know who's listening, right? So when you are asking those questions, what we tend to do when we don't know what the code of someone is to bring in the four codes in the conversation. So we balance it out, what we call bankifying it. And balance it so it appeals initially to everybody, because it's got almost equally balanced. And we have an AI, artificial intelligence app, that tells us how the words are lining up. And I can actually look at someone's media, for example, look at their website, look at an email. I can put it into the AI app, I can code it, and it tells me what their personality type is. And it's
so interesting.
It's very helpful, because one of my colleagues is selling her condo right now. And over Christmas, I looked at the listing and I ran it through the AI, and right away it was like, oh, this is only going to appeal to 1/8 of the population, based on the fact that it was written for women and it was only written for one code. Well, even if you know the codes, you've still got a 21 in 24 chance of getting it right. So that's where the training comes in to fully understand it. But it is initially very simple to take four different personality codes. Actually, I have them all on little. If I was meeting in person, I'd take my little four different little bank cards with me with the values on them. But we can do it online now, which is great because it takes 90 seconds and people get a 20-page report back on
Yeah.
them and their communications, and then three other primary ones as well, and all the triggers and tripwires and things like that.
Yeah, fascinating. It is super fascinating. We've always, I think, as human beings, been fascinated with personalities and communication styles and wanting to know where we are and how other people perceive us as well. It's always been
Mhm.
a fascination. So,
Well, even in cavemen and cavewomen days, right? They were communicating, but they were communicating with diagrams.
yeah.
Well, guess what? For kids, they actually have cards that just have the pictures on them.
Huh,
So a 6-year-old, you can give this to a 6-year-old and they can tell you their personality code. And that will give you a great understanding. Well, maybe not with my special needs son, but give you a great understanding of, why are they taking so long to pick out their clothes in the morning? Why are they being so picky? Why can't they just make a decision and go with it?
hmm,
Why can't they be flexible on holiday plans? And if you can have better relationships with your family and start there,
yeah.
then you can expand that out, whether you're in business as an entrepreneur or in a corporate job, whatever it is. We're communicating all the time, and our messaging is super important.
Especially with younger people, right? Because from especially under the age of 7, because they're really just taking in everything that we say. I feel like now that I know this stuff, and I need to be so careful in anything I say with young kids, because they're sponging, they're sponges, just taking everything in. So everything that we say could be affecting them long term. So being
Yeah,
super careful about that. Now, we the title of this show was talking about it being especially important during COVID.
right.
I think part of it um, is the resiliency side, and part of it is one thing we've learned from COVID, and I think this has been really interesting, is that we can't just look out for ourselves.
Right.
We're not living in bubbles. We need to take actions or inactions, but we have to think about the collective and everybody, not just ourselves. So, and what's your side of that? What's your take on that in terms of why it's especially important during COVID?
Yeah. Well, COVID has been the great equalizer. I mean, it doesn't matter what age, race, religion, sex, any of those things. Anybody can get it. I mean, you know, Justin Trudeau got it, and I'm in Canada, so our Canadian president, Trudeau got it. The UK president got it. Trump got it. I mean, everybody that is out and about meeting a lot of people is in jeopardy for that. And I think where the compassion comes in, where your words really, really matter right now in COVID, is first of all, it's your self talk. Oh my gosh, my company shut down. I lost my job. I must be a lousy worker. No, your company is impacted by COVID. You still have all the skills, abilities, and all of the experiences to bring to the table to add value. You're just not in the right place right now. So we need to find a new place or create a new place through conversation. Because when you know your value, you can create your own job. You just have to understand what you can contribute and how you can either add value or save the company money. And there's ways of doing it, many of which are in my book. Um, but I think we need to be kind to ourselves first. And then the second piece about it is understanding that everybody's going through this in a different way. So some people have, a cruise ship to be sitting on. Well, maybe not a cruise ship. They have their own private yacht to be sitting on. And some people are on a life raft, or some people just have a ring, right? We're all on this ocean together. I saw this expression. I can't remember who first put it out there, but saying that, this rising tide lifts all boats. Well, yeah, it does. However, it depends on what size of boat you're in, what resilience you have. The more resources you have, the more resilient you are. So the ultimate reason for writing my book was so that women could have more powerful conversations. They could ask for what they want and get it. So that my mom, who lived on this meager housekeeping money doled out by my dad and lost all her power and her dignity because she didn't have the financial resources. No other woman would ever be in that position.
Mm. I just want to say to people that I've shared the link to your doing the bank personality test, and I'm also sharing the link. You're giving away a gift of the first three chapters to your book, so people can go to that link and download it. I tell you, it's a great book. It's just makes you think differently, and I think it actually it can be life changing. So I'm going to put that out there for people.
That's what I say. I change lives,
Yeah, I love it.
because
So,
one word can
oh,
make a huge
yes.
difference, right? And when we think about, there's 40 different words in the book, words and word concepts, and then for every word is an action item. So now that you've caught yourself saying should, what do you do with that, right? And then
Right.
the last chapter that you haven't got to, which is one of those 3 that I'm giving away, is when words are not even required. So it's about using the power of silence. So if someone says to you, "Oh, Jane, blah 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 blah," and you're like, "Whoa," taking offense, instead of coming back with something, all you really need to say is, "Excuse me,"
Mhm.
and then you let the silence do the heavy lifting. We talk about that in coaching,
Yeah, I
and
know.
so it's not even words. Sometimes it's about how you make decisions, and that comes back to your word for the year, as you said. And mine is radical. So this year I'm stepping into going from alignment last year into being more radical in my actions and getting out and meeting more lovely women like yourself doing amazing work.
Oh, love it. I love the work you're doing too. Okay, I always end this show. This has been fascinating, and I know I could actually talk to you all day. I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen. Anyway, this is the way I end every show. Is what's one action someone could take today to improve their health? So I know yours. I got a feeling yours is going to be about words.
Yes. So, I mean, certainly, download a free copy of the 3 chapter excerpt on my website for sure, because that'll make a difference. We talked a little bit about the 4 different personality styles and the bank personality science system. I would say check that out. It takes 90 seconds. You can download these 4 cards. You can put them in order online, and the information that you'll get with that is just phenomenal. So I would take action right now by doing that and learn how to be more compassionate with others, because you understand where they're coming from and what language to use to help them to flourish as well in life.
Oh, that's so beautifully said, Yvonne. I really love it. Okay, so people can reach you. I did have the links there, but your website is, well, you're probably better if you say it.
It's words, women, and wisdom. So just like the book, except instead of an ampersand, it's AND in the middle. It's spelled out. Words, women, and wisdom.com. Or they
Okay,
can find me on LinkedIn as well.
yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for this conversation today. And I love what you're doing and bringing this topic out there and helping women in all areas of life. So thank you very much for the beautiful work you're doing in the world, Yvonne.
Oh, thank you so much, Jane, for having me. And I would love to continue the conversation too. So, listeners, wait for another podcast interview coming on my show.
Wonderful. All right, thanks. Bye.
Thanks so much, Jane. Bye, everybody.